Elvie and the Siege. Leo already made his choice. And it's Elvie and the Siege going to Meep City. Make sure that's working. Okay.
Maybe do you want to know your villagers better?
No, he already made his choice. Now don't try to make him change his mind. Just respect that he chose going to Meep City. What are they going to do at Meep City? Just sit around? We'll find out.
No, you make it up.
I'm going to make it up. Once upon a time. Are you okay?
Yep.
All right. Once upon a time, again, Elvie and the Siege woke up and they had a really nice breakfast. First, they made some crepes by taking some flour, growing it with bone meal, putting it on a crafting table, crafting it into not bread, but dough, and then rolling the dough super duper ooper pants pooper thin, and then they cut it up and they fried each piece of it and put some powdered sugar on it. The powdered sugar came from the sugar canes, but then they grinded it up by making a grinder. And they grinded it and they had powdered sugar crepes. But they also needed something to drink.
Wait, what's a crepe?
Crepe is it's kind of like the pancakes that Mommy makes. It's like a super thin pancake, really. Those are actually crepes that she makes. Okay, now, they did that and then they needed something to drink. So they got a command block, programmed it to do a mod. The mod grew a tree. The tree had lemons. They took the lemons. They squeezed all the lemon juice in, and then they put a bunch of sugar, powdered sugar, in the glass. And they had lemonade. But then, Elvie said, let's go to Meep City. And the Siege said, that sounds great. We haven't been there forever. And so, or have they? And Elvie said, we were just there. And the Siege said, oh yeah, that's right. And so they got on their horses and they galloped away. And when they got to the portal, they remembered that they had destroyed the portal the last time they left Meep City, and one of the blocks was gone. Are you okay? You're kind of fidgety. Are you going to be okay?
Yeah.
All right.
Let's just see what the hard thing is.
Okay, lay down.
Lay? Check.
There. Now, they got there and the portal was destroyed. And Elvie said, did you bring any obsidian blocks? And the Siege said, I do have a few, but did you bring any lighters? Any flint and steel? And Elvie checked around and he said, yeah, I do have it. And so the Siege said, here we go. Let's hope there's no giants gonna try to get us. And the Siege threw down the obsidian block, and Elvie lit the portal. And then they went inside Meep City. And Meep City was all back to normal. You couldn't even tell that anything bad had happened. And they went to the lady, and she said, oh, you're back. And there was the information kiosk desk. And Elvie said, yep, we're back. We just came here to see how things are going. She said, pretty good. And then they went to the park, and there was a little area that you could go into in the park, and it turned you into a little kid. So they turned themselves into little kids. They went playing on the park, running and jumping down the slides, all sorts of things. And then the magic kid potion turner on her thing wore off, and they turned back into Elvie and the Siege. And Elvie said, the Siege. And the Siege said, what? And Elvie said, I wonder how small we could get. And the Siege said, what do you mean? And Elvie said, well, if we went back into that portal thing, or that zone thing, as kids, what would it do? And the Siege said, probably turn us into babies, and we'd just be like, bleh, bleh, bleh. And Elvie said, but what if it's not turning us into kids? Because you still have your mind and all your functions. It's just that you're smaller. And the Siege said, now that you mention it, That's right. It's not actually turning us into kids. It's turning us into small versions of ourselves. And Elvie said, what if you went in there again? Would you get even smaller? And the siege said, let's try. And so they got into the little area and went and turned into this small versions of themselves. And then they went out and they went back in the area. And there was a guy there and he's like, hey, you can't go in there if you're small like that. It'll turn you smaller. And the siege said, you were right. And Elvie said, uh-oh. And then they went, and they turned smaller. And they were like baby Mario size, really small. And Elvie said, oh, I wonder if I can jump in the air more. And the siege said, probably, let's try it. And they jumped, and they could jump higher. They were lighter, and they could jump higher. And Elvie said, this is awesome. And then they turned back to their little selves, and then turned back into their normal selves. And the siege said, are you thinking what I'm thinking? And Elvie said, we should take a bath and some ice cream? And the siege said, yeah. And so they went to some ice cream store, and they put a bunch of ice cream in a bathtub, and they took baths in there, and they're like, la, 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 la. And then they got all done with that, and they came back, and Elvie said, hey, we should try to get even smaller.
Smaller?
And they went in there, and they went, and then they went in there again, and then they went in there again, and they were the size of an ant. And Elvie said, whoa, look at how huge these grains of sand are. And he picked up a grain of sand and held it over his head. He's like, watch this. Raw. And he threw the sand and it went way far away because they were super strong. And the siege said, wow, that's amazing. I'm going to punch a sand. And he punched it. And it made a huge, huge crater. And people were like, what? What's going on? This crater just appeared in the middle of nowhere. And then they turned into little Elvie and the siege. And then a little bit littler, but bigger than little. And then and turned into themselves size. And people were like, whoa, did you guys just come out of the sand? And Elvie said, yeah. Didn't you know that people can do that? And they're like, wow, people come out of the sand. We didn't even know that could happen. And the siege said, okay, let's see if we can get even smaller. And Elvie said, oh man, I wonder what we're going to do. So they went, and they were super small as a cell in the body. And they were riding on top of a giant ant. The ant was so big to them that they were like riding on the top of a giant ant. And Elvie looked down through the ant and he could see the individual cells of the ant. It was what the ant was made up of. And the siege said, this is crazy. You can see all the cells. And Elvie said, look, there's his brain. And they could look down through his skin and see his brain. And his brain was making, connecting electrical pulses. But they also noticed that this ant went up to another ant and they touched antennas and they communicated to each other that way. Whoa, said Elvie, that's amazing. And then they went, and they were the size of an ant, and the ant went oof under their weight, and then they went, and they turned back into their normal selves. And the siege was like, whoa, nothing's smaller than a cell. And Elvie said, yeah, but we should make sure. And so the siege said, okay. And they went, and there they were, floating around in the air because they couldn't even touch on the ground. And they saw the ant. It was huge. And they were so small that they went right through his skin. and they landed inside a cell inside the ant. And there was a mitochondria in there, which was a little bug. And I tried to get him. It was like, and Elvie took out his sword and was like, cha, 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 cha. And he killed all the stuff in the cell. And then, all of a sudden, they felt an earthquake. And a new cell took place. And it had all those bugs back in it, the mitochondria and stuff.
They don't grow in the ant.
Yeah, and the siege said, we just caused this cell to divide. We need to get out of here before these guys try to eat us or something. And just then, they were back to their normal selves. And Elvie was like, wow, this is like holding your breath underwater as long as you can. The siege said, yeah, I wish this shrinking stuff lasted even longer. And Elvie said, yeah, but then it might be a long time down there. And they went back in. And they went further than they'd ever gone before. And pretty soon, the siege said, whoa, it's just like we're out in outer space. And Elvie said, yeah, we're so small that we can't even see anything. And the siege said, look out. And a subatomic particle went whipping by him. Whoa, said Elvie. And just then, the siege said, oh, we didn't get small, we got big. Look, it's a planet and a moon. And they looked, and there was a planet coming right for them with a moon going around it. And Elvie said, no, that's not a moon. It's an electron. And the siege said, whoa, that's no moon, it's an electron. And Elvie said, we got to turn around and get out of here. And the siege said, why? And Elvie said, that thing's going to smash into us. And then siege realized they were going to get smashed by an electron. But then, they made it back to the top. And Elvie said, I think I've had enough of shrinking for one day. The siege said, I know what you mean. Let's go take another ice cream bath. The end.
That was the most shrinktastic story.